Hi, my name is Matikela. Welcome to my YouTube channel. So I want us to have a closer look. Ne? Let's take a closer look. If the state case against Danzi, is it strong or collapsing? Senzo Meyiwa trial. Okay? Yes, let's talk about that. There are cases where the truth is obvious. Okay? And then there are cases like this one, the Senzo Meyiwa case, where everything looks strong there. When you put there the surface, it looks strong until you start pulling all the threads. And then you are like, hey man, what's going on here? What is this nasana in Tolento School? Aibo. And then you are like, hmm, hmm. Because what the state has against Danzi is not one piece of evidence. It's a stack, right? But here is the real question. Is that stack solid? Or is it about to collapse? Or it has collapsed? What's happening? The prosecution is not relying on one smoking gun, right? They are building a chain. Confessions, witnesses, phone data, alibi cracks, connection to others. Individually, each piece can be challenged, but together, they are trying to make it feel inescapable. Okay, let's get through it all. Now, let's talk about the confession. This is the state's nuclear weapon. They say Danzi confessed not once, 2 times. Not just once, multiple times, guys. Did you get that? Yes, yes, yes. And that confession, they claim he places himself inside the crime scene. But here where things get dangerous, the audio recording of that confession ruled inadmissible. Inadmissible, so we're not going there. Now think about that. If the recording is out, the court is left with a written version of it all. And that opened the door to one question. Was it truly voluntarily or was it manufactured? And there's another crack. That confession cannot be used against co-accused, which means it's powerful but isolated. It will deal with Bongani. He can go alone. He can go down alone for the crime because he says he was there, according to the confession. Right? Point number 2. Let's talk about the witnesses. Now, the state brings a human evidence, 2 key angles. A police witness placing all accused together before and after the crime, and Zandile Kumalo pointing to Ndanzi in court, Tumelo pointing Ndanzi, and Tumelo Madlala pointing to Ndanzi in court also. On paper, that sounds strong, right? Sounds very, very strong and very all right. And it's yebo. Yes. But in court, identification is never that simple because this wasn't proper ID parade. This was doc identification. Doc identification. And legally, what does it say? That's one of the weakest forms of identification. So now the question becomes, are these witnesses remembering or are they reconstructing? What's going on here? What's going on here? Also, the other witness, Zungu, the constable, his version of events, we've been told there are people that he said he was with. They came through. The owner of the house, he says they were together in Sezi Umpedoloyo. He says that's rubbish. There's no such thing. The second person is the person that he says, sorry, he traveled with to go to the owner of the house where there was a party celebrations of whatever. That one says, actually, that event that he's referring to happened in 2017, and all these guys that are sitting here were never there. I don't know. I choose 3, 4, and 5. I've never seen them anywhere. Also, who owner of the house said, I don't know. I choose 3 and 5, but I do know I choose number 1 is my cousin. And accused number 4 is my uncle. I know him. But 3 and 5, I don't know them. Absolutely not. I don't know them. And now that one alone now is causing problems, Kengu. Because what do you mean? Mugai said a lot here, a mouthful here. So now what do you mean, Uguti? You don't know. Ne? Now there is also this phone evidence state that is busy with the entire time. Okay. Now this is where things get uncomfortable. The state says Danzi had a phone while in police custody. Not just a phone making hundreds of or even thousands of calls to his family, friends, and whoever he knows, colleagues, uploading statuses, downloading images, posting on Facebook. I don't know about that, but they said a lot. Okay, if it's true, it doesn't prove murder. Still, it doesn't prove murder because what they are referring to apparently happened in 2020, but the murder happened 2014. But it does something more subtle. It attacks credibility. Because if he says, I didn't have a phone, and the data says you did, then the court starts asking, if you are lying about this, what else are you lying about? But here is the problem, though, when it comes to all of this. When you get arrested, the first thing that they do, they search you and take everything away from you. So you see, not only Ntanzi's credibility is on the floor, also the police, the state's case. Now, let's talk about the alibi cracks, Kesan, because, yeah, we're not going to run away from that. Now we move to the timeline. The state zooms in on work records, leave days, bank transactions. And what do they say? The alibi doesn't hold. Not at work, not supported by transactions, not consistent, but here's the twist. An alibi falling apart does not prove guilt still. You can't prove innocence. Ne? So it does not prove that the person is guilty. It only proves one thing. You can't prove innocence. That's it. And there is a gap there. The gap, and that gap, that's where reasonable doubt lives. Because you can't place Ntanzi a phosphorus on the day. Now, let's talk about also Baloyi dealt with the connections regarding cell phone contacts and the other accused. Now, the state tries to connect the dots, photos, phone contacts, association with co-accused. The message is clear. These men are linked, but in law, association is not guilty because being connected does not mean being involved. So again, we are left with a pattern, but not necessarily proof. So let's step back. What does the state really have? A confession with complications, witnesses with weaknesses, phone data that damages credibility, its own credibility, an alibi under pressure, connections that raise suspicions. Individually, each one can be attacked and is being attacked. Together, they are trying to form a narrative of guilt. But here is the truth about court. A narrative is not enough. Bring us the proof. Place the accused to crime scene. Because in the end, this case does not run outside the courtroom. It needs to be inside, and also does not run outside the Khumalo house. It needs to be inside. This case also does not turn on noise. It turns on one thing: proof beyond reasonable doubt. And beyond reasonable doubt, exactly that. And right now, this case is sitting on a knife's edge. Not fully broken, not fully proven, just one crack away from either conviction or total collapse. What are your thoughts when it comes to what is happening when it comes to Ntanzi's evidence? Let's talk in the comment section. I want to hear your views. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.